Experiencing war as an adult is difficult, but imagine growing up around it as a child. And that's the reality for millions of children in Ukraine now who've had their childhood and schooling disrupted by the biggest war in Europe since World War II. That's the subject of a powerful investigative series by NPR, and it's now been recognized as a finalist in the Scripps Howard Awards for Journalistic Excellence, and the awards are sponsored by our parent company, E.W. Scripps. And joining us now is Elissa Nadworny, one of the journalists involved in that series. Thank you so much for taking the time out. Congratulations, such a well-deserved award here. And in particular, you focused on one kindergarten and its teachers in Ukraine's second largest city of Kharkiv. So what happened to them when war broke out in 2022?
Yeah, well, so I first encountered this kindergarten after it had been hit by Russian shelling. There were no students there at the time. But when I was in the classroom, it just looked like frozen in time. Like there was a chess set open, like waiting for a child to make the next move. There was the lunch menu from February 24th that was never served. And basically what had happened was these 27 students in this kindergarten had kind of spread to the wind. More than half left the country. They fled through Poland or Moldova. The other half were spread all across Ukraine, in the west and in central Ukraine. Only one child from that classroom was still living in Kharkiv when I did the story.
Wow. And you spoke with child development specialists. So how bad has that impact been and this disruption been on these children's development?
Well, I think all of the children in the kindergarten class, whether they left Ukraine or they stayed, experienced some sort of trauma. You know, coping with war manifests in a lot of different ways. So children I talked to sometimes felt helpless or uncertain. They had trouble falling asleep, or they couldn't really describe in words what they were feeling. But, you know, the thing is that children are resilient. So when I visited them often in their new homes, there was like moments of hope. They were learning new languages, new routines. Their brains are literally adapting and growing to their new realities.
Wow. And how are the children and the parents and the teachers coping with the war's fallout? I mean, we're about 2.5 years into this war. Have they found any type of coping mechanisms to handle day-to-day life? I mean, even though you say they're getting back to a normal sort of life, how are they achieving that?
Yeah, I think it's really hard. A lot of the parents I talked to in that first year really thought this was temporary. They talked about going home. They talked about like going back to their school, meeting their old friends. And I think now, exactly as you said, 2.5 years later, that's not really the reality that they're living in. And so I think there has been kind of adjustments to a lot of families are talking with therapists and psychologists and trying to figure out kind of like, how do we start to rebuild new lives and still have such a strong connection to where we're from Kharkiv, from Ukraine. I think it's a really big challenge. And you know, the other thing a lot of parents talked to me about was, how much do they talk to their kids about war? How much do they hide? You know, these are 6-year-olds we're talking about, now 7. How much do they share? And that was a big question.
Yeah, and how do they explain it to children? Because I would imagine, I mean, when you're so young, you may not understand in kindergarten what's happening. But as you grow up, this is all around you. So does it become the norm? Is it something where these children are going to have these fears for the rest of their life? I mean, how do they tell people to cope?
Yeah, well, it's a really interesting question. I mean, I think when I talk to psychologists and child therapists, they say, let the child kind of lead, let them ask questions and be as honest and open as you can. So you don't kind of like turn off their fears and put them back into nightmares. Because I think that was the main concern, is that if students or children are seeing things or hearing things or talking about things with their friends, it's really nice to have a caring, trusted adult be able to talk to them about those things. I think one thing I saw happen that is sometimes a little bit, you want to be wary of, is lying or kind of hiding kids from what's happening, because they know, even at 6, they know what's going on. They're talking to their friends about it.
Wow. Well, NPR correspondent Elissa Nadworny, thank you for speaking with us about this important reporting, and congratulations, a well-deserved accolade. We appreciate it. Experiencing